Well, Ultraman Day 2021 was a bit of a whopper, wasn't it? Not one, not two, but three major online events, in addition to announcements from Mill Creek and the premiere of Ultraman Trigger. It really was one heck of a festival, and for once, yours truly had a hand in it. For those who are just joining us, I've recently been doing work with Shout Factory and TokuSHOUTsu, and that led into my helping out in their Ultraman Day ULTRATHON event. It was a hell of an experience and a fun story to tell, which is what I'm aiming to do with this episode. So, for Vintage Henshin EXTRA, I'm Mike Dent, and this is the making of Ultraman Day ULTRATHON 2021. The story begins in the summer of 2020. By that point, Shout Factory had launched their new brand, TokuSHOUTsu, and the podcast, Let's Talk Toku. After appearing on an episode to help set the record straight about Ultraman, I stayed in touch with the show's producer, Ari, who is also one of the main movers and shakers for TokuSHOUTsu. After a series of emails, I ended up landing a gig editing and/or occasionally writing promos for TokuSHOUTsu as well as Shout Factory TV. Highlights thus far include the MST3K Gamera Marathon, pretty much every Ultraman promo you have seen since late 2020, and my personal favorite, the reveal trailers for both Kamen Rider 01 and Kamen Rider Yuki that were shown during Rider Week 2021, the latter of which elicited this reaction.
Whoever edited that, you didn't have to go that hard, alright? It was already big enough news that Ryuki was coming. You didn't have the glass breaking the man.
Towards the end of 2020, Ari and I were talking about my being brought in to help with a potential 55th anniversary Ultraman event, mainly in the form of a marathon. Suffice to say, I was ecstatic. So, right at the start of 2021, I submitted a 5-page pitch document with event concepts. Only a handful of things made it into the final, namely the idea of some kind of support team hosting. I was originally lobbying for the American branch of Storage from Ultraman Z, all of the episodes leading into some kind of movie premiere, and the inclusion of Monster Island buddies for a bootleg rendition of the Ultraman Ginga Spark Dolls theater sketches. We'll talk more about that last one in a bit. For the movie, we ultimately decided to go with Ultraman Zero: The Revenge of Belial. It's easily one of the best films of the Zero trilogy, and it's the most accessible to new fans. The story moves ahead to our first actual meeting for the event, with both Ari and our eventual host, Kyle Anderson, the senior editor over at Nerdist. The two of them brought along a pitch for the marathon's framing device, one long disaster news report with updates in between episodes. I was initially iffy on the concept because, well, the big premiere of the event takes place in an alternate universe. But then I literally had a burst of outer inner monologue about it, thinking about how to make it work, and I ended up making myself laugh really hard about it in the proof. Need I remind you, this was during my first ever meeting with Kyle. Best first impression ever. After drafting the outline, Kyle, Ari, and myself hashed out the script across a few writing sessions, whilst I curated the 19 episodes for the event in the meantime. The goal was to find stories that were both crowd pleasers and good representations for their respective shows. But most of all, each one of the episodes had to work within the context of the overall framing storyline, which now had evolved from simply being a disaster news report to being an ongoing War of the Worlds type broadcast hatched by a ragtag group over at the fictional Ackerman Observatory, named for the sci-fi fan and legend Forrest J. Ackerman. Speaking of which, that was one of several general sci-fi and Ultraman Easter eggs scattered throughout the event. You might have also noticed these.
Evil, pure, and simple from the 8th dimension!
Evil! Pure and simple from the 8th dimension!
Reverse it.
Reverse what?
Reverse the polarity.
Try reversing the polarity.
Wait, that actually works?
Moving right along, I had a short list of people in mind to bring into the Ultrathon. As I mentioned before, Monster Island Buddies was on the list from the word go. Because since starting Vintage Henshin, I've had the chance to branch out and see stuff from the kaiju side of tokusatsu YouTubers, and MIB quickly became a favorite. I knew that his brand of humor would be a perfect fit. I mean, heck, his main storyline episodes were already close to the Spark Doll Theater's format. We just had to get him to wind it down to 30 seconds and, well, keep it PG. Jason Narvey was another name that came up right away, and let me tell you how surreal it was to be giving him, an actor who had been in a show that was partially responsible for my entire career, character direction. All that amounted to was my literally saying, remember the Pepe Sylvia scene from It's Always Sunny? Do that, but with Ultraman. Oh, and while I'm here, fun fact, there are large swaths of Jason's performance that had to be cut down for the final episode because he straight up broke the dial off. And that was really fine because that's basically how I wrote the character. Then of course there was Mike Toole. We go back a ways, and I knew he'd be a fun pick for the roster, having seen his run with both Crunchyroll Christmas specials, along with his presentations for Discotheque.
See how easy it is? Now I'm hungry.
Although I'd be lying if I didn't say my ulterior motive was just to hear him do a Baltan voice for that one gag.
Your mom.
Linda Lee, aka Vampy Bit Me, came on recommendation, and she knocked it out of the park with her run as our quantum historian. And Lisa J from No Pink Spandex was one of the first people to come to mind to play the co-worker who was fed up of our crap. Helping us out on VFX was another YouTuber that I've come to know recently, Jake from Daikaiju Legends. It's not exaggeration when I say that he was the secret weapon of the Ultrathon, with his work truly helping us put the whole thing over the top, even though he still is a total absolute monster for his constant toy destruction. It's also thanks to him that we were able to get Alyssa Thay, who I'd first seen in Jake's fan adaptation of Zone Fighter. She literally came into the project during the 11th hour after a last-minute guest back out, and both her and Jake managed to get everything shot in the nick of time. Which brings us to the big surprise of the event that kind of fell into our lap. Daniel Van Thomas, the voice actor for Ultraman Zero in the William Winkler Ultraman dubs, was invited to take part as a guest, and we ended up working that into the storyline. In the original drafts of the script, Alyssa's scenes on quote-unquote the Land of Light were a lot longer and actually ended with her interviewing Ultraman Zero, who in true Chad fashion would be just off camera and making our poor correspondent use an archive photo. This would have played into the climax where several members of the team would turn out to be a covert team of Ultras working with Zero as part of an interference plan so he and Ultimate Force Zero could take Belial's Imperial leftovers by surprise. As fun as that kind of sounds, ultimately, and understandably, the logistics involved in this twist resulted in it being scrapped. However, during the approval process all the same, Tsuburaya actually offered to shoot brand new Zero suit footage for us in the style of the interstitials seen on the Ultraman official YouTube page. And well, with that in mind, it shaped how I wrote the final draft of the script, which was the story that you saw on air. Now, the Observatory team would be staging their War of the Worlds plan in a last desperate effort to alert the skeptic Earthguard Defense Organization, and inadvertently, their plea would catch the attention of Ultraman Zero, who just so happens to be passing by, and would also ultimately save the day off-screen. The cherry on top of the whole thing? We have Zero stick around to give a primer recap for all the new fans tuning in so they could be brought up to speed in time for the big movie premiere. Suffice to say, when we got the green light on this version of the script, there was much rejoicing. Once we were good to go, our script for Zero was sent over to Tsuburaya along with the audio of Daniel's lines, which would then be translated and used as the backbone for the Japanese shoot. Once they were finished, all the footage got sent back to us, and the rest is history. Zero's appearance truly was the crown jewel surprise of the entire event. And well, the reactions in chat on the day definitely made everything we went through worth it.
Yes, sorry, hi,
Surprise!
receiving you. Oh, good. I'm Ultraman Zero.
As I record this, I'm still getting messages from people saying that I helped make the 55th anniversary of Ultraman something really special for them. And in some respects, I still can't believe it happened. I walk away from the Ultrathon not only having co-written and co-produced it, but also landing a director's credit in the process. My first professional one, no less. I went from being just some fan consultant who's good with editing and motion graphics to helping wrangle the troops, giving direction to audio and VFX, even sitting in on meetings with reps from Tsuburaya for crying out loud. It's amazing to think of the opportunities my work on Vintage Henshin has paved the way for, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this was a life-changing experience. I'm so thankful to the cast and crew of this year's Ultrathon, and hey, if the wind's blowing the right way, I wouldn't mind doing it again sometime. But not for a while, please. If you need me, I'm gonna be sleeping for 2 weeks.